This 3-bedroom in Lentor Gardens Residences targets this group of buyers who are looking at about a $2 million quantum, yet want something nearer to MRT station. Hello, welcome to another episode of The Property Logic, where we break down the logic behind property decisions. Today we have here a very famous piece of land, all the way from 2020 till date. We have been talking about it every single year. So where are we at? We are at Lentor. So this is the URA Master Plan 2023, whereby it's still one whole joint piece of land, okay? Then in 2025, we can see that it has actually been dissected to multiple plots and then slowly sold along the way. So today, in today's context, what we have is over here, whereby there are already 3,453 units launched in the past 6 years. So here are their names as well as the average per square foot sold. Over here, before we go into Lentor Gardens Residences, our main subject of the day, here is Lentor Modern, whereby we have tried and tested area with its first development in the area, accounting for about 4% per annum growth, which is very healthy in terms of property investment. We've helped 93 families so far make property decisions for portfolio restructuring or upgrading. So if you are interested to know more, feel free to reach out to any of our consultants. The contact details will be in the description box below. Okay, so disclaimer, while every reasonable cost has been taken, do your due diligence and then feel free to reach out to your trusted advisors or consultants to find out more before making any property decisions. Today, what is the most important thing for property purchase, as well as the most common objection for Lentor area? So 2022 pricing or window of opportunity. I know some of you will be thinking, sure or not, so Zun, when I want to look at properties, then suddenly got one window of opportunity or pricing for me. Is this really true? First, we break down the land cost of Lentor Garden Residences. First, we have over here the land price that it was bought at, 920 per square foot. Then secondly, I also want to touch on this date over here. So 3rd of April 2025. So with these two in mind, let's move on to the next slide. So 2 bidders. Does this mean that the land is bad or unattractive, which is why no developers bid onto it? So firstly, for there to be opportunities, changes or fear must be there. If everything is going well, then there won't be any opportunities because everything will just be good, will just be on the rise, prices will be high. Let me touch on the other land bids in Lentor area. So you can see the tender close date started all the way in 2021 until the latest 2025. And then these are their land prices bought at 1204, 1060, 1108, 1130, etc., etc., as well as the percentage sold. So you can see in the entire Lentor area, there are 7 new launches, but actually in terms of the supply available, there isn't much left. So back to this, why is there a window of opportunity? So let me touch on 3 pointers, one of which will be new home sales performance in 2024. So if you remember just now, this plot of land was bought very early in 2025, okay, on April. So in 2024, what happened? So what happened over here, right, is that developers actually saw 16-year record low, okay, besides the 1160 units sold in the first quarter of 2024, only a total of 1,916 was sold, making it lowest half-yearly new home sales on record. So in summary, if I were to draw a line over here, right, you can see that in 2024, we have actually the 3 lowest quarters around in terms of new home sales. Okay, whereby you can see if we don't count in the 4th quarter, bringing up the rest of the sales performance, in the whole of 2024, developers launched 6,600 and then only sold 6,469 units, in which about half of them was in the last quarter. So in the first 3 quarters, right, there was only 3,000 plus new homes sales. If you were a developer, will you have confidence at this point in time where you have just been bettered for 3 quarters, whereby there isn't a lot of sales? You do have products because they've launched 6,647 units, but only 3,000 plus sold in 3 quarters. Okay, then next will be interest rates. So in Singapore, property demand is actually tied to interest rates. Why? Because as the cost of borrowing increases, the attractiveness of property as an investment or even as a own stay unit decreases slightly. In 2023, all the way until start of 2025, it was at its record high, whereby people were saying, wow, my mortgage just randomly increased by 1,000 or 2 out of nowhere just because of the interest rates. Do remember that developer actually managed to bid into the plot of land at approximately this timing. okay, in April 2025, whereby the interest rates were slated to decrease but hasn't decreased yet. Okay, then last but not least would be harmonization. So harmonization actually was announced on 1st September 2022, then with effect from 1st June. So at this point in time in April 2025, right, we have only seen maybe approximately 7 to 8 new launches that were post-harmonized. So at this point in time, we are also not sure of what will the sales performance be like. And then developers at that point in time will also be a bit more cautious in bidding for land. Then next up, we have already identified why is there a window of opportunity. So will there be any more opportunities in the future? I.e. will prices drop even further? Okay, so next up, we'll be touching on the future pricing in Lentor area. Okay, so just very recent in 3rd March 2026, we just see this number 1,278 per square foot. Okay, that's enough to let us know whether the future pricing will decrease even further. What does this mean? 1,778 minus this is for Lentor Gardens Residences, 920 square feet. There's a gap of $358 per square foot. What does this mean to you as a buyer or consumer? We've actually tabulated the past notable new launches that were all post-harmonized. So from their land bid price, right, over here, to the average launch price, we found out that there's a difference of usually about 99 to 140%. Okay, so these are based on all these figures over here. So if we were to take a more prudent number at 1,278 per square foot, if I plus 99%, that will come out to about 2,543 per square feet. And then if I were to take a more aggressive number, 140%, then it will come out to about 3,067 per square foot. This is the future pricing, and it's not too far from now, because if the land was bidded this year in March, it will most likely be launched next year, March to June. Okay, so we are not talking about future pricing 10 years down the road, it's just 1 year later. Okay, so now that the price is right, as well as we already know that future pricing will be even higher, next up will be our exit strategy. So this is the 7th plot of land in Lentor area, and then there's also impending supply incoming. Will it affect exit price when selling? Just using another cluster as example, over here we have Tampines West, whereby we have our Alps Residences, Tapestry, Santorini, Waterview, up at Tampines, Q Bay, the Tropica. So all in all, right, there are 4,521 number of units. So just now, back in Lentor area, we've uncovered that there are about 3,500 units so far. But this is a very comparable example. Why? Because this number of units is higher. Okay, so let's take a look at their performance. So over here, we've got the Tropica from 2000, Waterview, Alps, Q Bay. So we've got a mix of newer and older developments. Now let's take a look at their unprofitable transactions. So for the newer developments like Waterview, 9 unprofitable transactions, Alps, 0 unprofitable transactions, Q Bay, 21 unprofitable transactions. Then back to the Tropica at 2000. So there are 93 unprofitable transactions, but this is because the Tropica has went through a lot of property cycles. They went through like COVID, the major cooling measures implemented, etc. But majority of them, you can see that they are mostly profitable. Okay, so over here we have our out at Tampines EC from 2011, the Santorini 2017, Tapestry 2021. So you can see relatively newer developments, only 8 unprofitable transactions, 1 over here. So all in total, right, we've got 2,202 transactions, then with only 132 unprofitable one. That's about a 5.99% rate of it being unprofitable. The remaining 94% are all profitable transactions. Moving on, with such a comparison, okay, so why did I purposely choose Tampines West as a comparable is because the number of units are about the same, slightly further away from city area, as well as further away from amenities like your MRT station, your mall, groceries, etc. But with that said, having a comparable already isn't enough. Next up, we'll go on to unit analysis because what we believe is that not all units are equal. For Lentor, coming back to Lentor Modern itself, I've done up a quick search on Property Guru on Lentor Modern, and then these are the number of units selling as of today. So there are 22 studio and or 1 bedrooms for sale, 65 2 bedrooms, 100 3 bedroom, as well as only 6 4 bedrooms. And actually this number is even slightly skewed because after clicking into the 4 bedroom sales, right, I do see these listings over here whereby agents are marketing 3+ study or 3+ flexi units as 4 bedrooms. In actual fact, right, there's actually 102 3-bedroom for sale and only 4 4-bedder for sale. What does this mean to you as a buyer? In today's context, a lot of people are looking at 3-bedroom for investment. Last time, 3-bedroom used to be mostly for own stay, but in today's context, right, a lot of them are for flipping for investment as well, which is why you can see out of the 193 listings for sale, more than half of them are actually 3-bedroom unit type. Back to the main topic, Lentor Gardens Residences. Project name Lentor Gardens Residences. Developer is Kingsford. It's a residential with commercial space at level 1. Some things to note, it has 3 units of 2-story strata landed, which is the first in the entire Lentor enclave, with an early childhood development center, basement parking, communal facilities. Okay, that's normal. Okay, car park lots, 418 car park lots, and the lower basement, 88 car park lots in the upper basement, coming out to total 402 car park lots, which is, I think, very ample considering that it's just a short walk away from Lentor MRT station. So over here, lifestyle and amenities. Lentor Modern will be the place to go to for most of the residents around the area. Then it has almost everything for daily needs. It has got groceries, your cold storage, it has got food like your Shok Burger, KFC, etc. There's also bakeries like Kopi and Tart. Over here, this is the location map. So from Lentor Gardens to the MRT station is literally a walk in a park. Okay, so the nearest way to walk through it, right, will be through Hillock Park, cutting through to Lentor Central. Here are some artist impression. The developer has done a very good job in terms of the facade. It actually fits the rest of the developments in Lentor area as well, coming in with the Sky Park. Okay, so these are some of the views as well as facings for Lentor Gardens Residences itself. This development is not purely north-south facing as per what most developments will be because of the size or shape of the land. So it's mainly northeast or southwest facing. So the view will be either towards Hillock Park, towards the northeast side, or towards the Thompson Park Lower Pierce Reservoir Park if it's facing towards southwest. Here are some panoramic views from level 9, so towards each of the facing. Okay, so in terms of unit distribution wise, we see a lot of 2 bedrooms over here. This comes out to approximately 50% of the development. Then with the other 3 bedroom to strata forming the other half, the other remaining 50%. So what does this mean for you as a buyer? It means that the floor plan and pricing analysis is going to be very important, especially if you are to touch into a 2-bedroom unit type, because once you want to exit, there will be about half the development who will be your competitor. Okay, so next up, 2,050 per square foot. So this was the official announcement by developer already, 2050. Does it sound too good to be true? Because personally, I do think, even though I'm very optimistic, but I also like to be a bit more realistic. So in terms of the developer's past track record, right, I'm using Normanton Park as an example. They do have strata landed within the development itself. So you can see over here, right, the PSF of the strata landed was about 1,493. And then when we move on to the normal unit, the 2-bed, 2-bath, 1-bed, 1-bath, 3-bed, 2-bath, etc., the per square foot is actually about 150 per square foot higher. I believe that this will be the case for Lentor Garden Residences as well, whereby the starting from per square foot is for the 3 strata houses as compared to like normal units. Okay, which is why for my estimated price matrix, I'm only using 2050 for the strata terrace houses, and then my normal units will start from 2001 onwards. Okay, I do think that this is a bit optimistic as well. I believe majority of the units will be averaging about 2250 to 2400 within this range. But anyways, while we do not have the official release price from developers yet, now I'll just share that 2-bedroom premium for 646 square feet, there is low chance of it starting below 1.4 million, just right below, whereas most of the units will be between 1.4 to about 1.55 million. Then moving on to our 2-bedroom premium, it can start just below 1.5 million at about 1.4 plus, going all the way until 1.6, 1.7 million. Then 2 plus study, same thing as well, might start from about 1.55. Then for 3-bedroom deluxe, potentially will start below 1.9 million. I think that it will most likely start around here lah. But being optimistic, I do hope that there will be a couple of units ranging around here. 3-bedroom deluxe plus study, likewise, everything will start around here, but I'm hoping to see some prices in between this area. Then if you want any detailed analysis on the pricing, do feel free to reach out to our consultants, whereby we'll form a 45 minutes non-obligatory consultation with you. Moving on to the floor plans. I'll not be touching on all the floor plans today, I'll just be selecting a few. Over here, we'll go into the floor plans itself. So for this 2-bedroom premium, good point about it is that it's designed as a dumbbell layout. As mentioned earlier, not all units are created equal, and especially for Lentor Garden Residences, the selection of 2-bedroom is very important. To me, I personally feel that this layout will not stand out so much in terms of reselling in the future. Why? Because this is the only layout with the kitchenette over here. The rest of the 2-bedroom layouts in Lentor, right, are all the C-shaped semi-enclosable kitchen. Like what you see over here, 2-bedroom premium with a C-shaped kitchen as such. Then for this layout wise, this is a 678 square feet 2-bedroom premium layout. So I'll compare it with my 2-bedroom premium HS. HS stands for household shelter. So in terms of choosing of layout, right, I'll actually pick this one more because it's a increase of 11 square feet, which translates to about 22 to 24,000 in terms of overall quantum. But you get a proper household shelter, which can double up as a study and or storage space, as compared to my previous layout of there being a recess area for study, but you cannot really do much with it. Next up, for 3-bedroom deluxe, I think this is one you need to look out for. Why? Because in terms of quantum wise, 872 square feet, very compact, very efficient, gives you everything as well. So naturally ventilated kitchens and toilets. Over here are the windows. Bedrooms that can fit queen size bed, and then king for master bedroom. Okay, proper living and dining area, separated, only at 872 square feet. In terms of quantum wise, right, even if I don't start from 2050, I don't even use 2001, I go straight to 2200 per square foot. It gives me a price of 1.918 million. Just doing a quick search on existing product in the pipeline currently, right? For 3-bedder below 2 million, we are looking at Nara Residences, Coastal Cabana, which is an EC, Canberra Crescent Residences, Ocho, as well as the Shorefront. Some of the developments here are boutique developments, some of them are ECs, but they have one thing in common. They are all minimally 10 to 15 minutes walk away from the nearest MRT station. I think this 3-bedroom in Lentor Garden Residences targets this group of buyers who are looking at about a $2 million quantum, yet want something nearer to MRT station. For the 3+ study, same thing, also very efficient, 936 square feet. There's a small foyer space over here, which some people may or may not like, but everything else very proper, so naturally ventilated kitchen, toilets, 3 proper bedrooms, as well as with a study area. Using Lentor Modern as a direct comparison, you see that the floor plan is actually very, very similar. Over here, we've got 3 proper bedrooms, same over here. The only difference is that the bath 2 as well as the study actually swap place. Over here, there's a small foyer. Then over here, this is opening towards the living and dining area. Personally, I would actually prefer Lentor Garden Residences layout because the foyer space gives me a bit more privacy as compared to Lentor Modern. This layout-wise is actually more efficient at 936 square feet due to harmonization. These are the actual resale transacted prices for Lentor Modern's 3-bedder. So you can see these are all my 980 to 990 square feet unit, which is the layout that I've shown just now. And then their transacted prices goes from about 2.2 plus to 2.4 plus. Okay, so using 936 square feet times 2,200 per square foot, we are looking at about 2.06 million. Okay, so based on whatever that has been transacted here, just now previously mentioned 2.2 to 2.4 million, we are looking at a gap of around 2 to 400,000. So as a buyer, do you think this is a safe entry, buying something brand new yet at a lower price as compared to your nearby comparable resale in terms of layout? So next up, I'll move on to the 3-bedroom premium plus study. So after speaking all the good about Lentor Garden Residences, so here's something that I do have slight concerns about, because for 3-bedroom premium plus study usually is family oriented, and then families, they tend to cook a bit more. So for this particular layout is very efficient. With just 969 square feet, they managed to give a wet kitchen, dry kitchen, 2 proper bathrooms, 3 proper sized bedrooms, and even a study area, as well as a household shelter. in theory, this should be one of the best or most efficient layouts. However, just one thing to note is that there are no windows over at the kitchen as well as the bathroom areas. So right now, in terms of the primary market, in terms of buying new launch, people are accepting it. But whether it will do well in the secondary market or in resale is another story. Okay, so for the 4-bedroom unit type, we are seeing that a lot of developers nowadays like to do 1184 square feet 4-bedders, and then it optimizes in terms of efficiency as well as the quantum. So over here, I think Kingsford has done a very good job whereby they've implemented all 4 proper sized bedrooms, as well as a yard over here and a household shelter for storage space. Nothing much to complain about this layout, and I think this also fits a gap whereby in terms of Lentor area, right, the smallest 4-bedroom in Lentor Modern is actually 1,528 square feet. Then for Lentor Hills Residences, 1,345, and for Lentoria, 1,206. And for Hillock Green itself, their largest 3-bedroom premium actually is at the same size, 1,184 square feet. So it's a very nice layout with landscape living area, 3 proper bedrooms, a study. But for the same quantum, will you rather go for 3-bedroom plus study or a proper 4-bedroom? And in terms of price acceptance, the highest price transacted, right, for Hillock Green is at 2.805 million. So looking back to my estimated price matrix for 4-bedroom in Lentor Gardens Residences, the 4-bedroom most likely will be starting at about 2.5 million, which is approximately a 200 plus to 300,000 lower as compared to what has already been transacted at Hillock Green. So does this sound like a safe entry for you? For Kingsford pricing strategy, we've done an analysis on their previous projects like Trump Park, Normanton Park, etc. So based on our experience on the ground, each developer have got their own pricing strategy. And for Kingsford, more often than not, we don't know whether it will continue or repeat for Lentor Garden Residences, but more often than not, they do tend to reward early entry. So if you are keen to know more, or would like to know about our in-house investment methodology, do feel free to reach out to me or any of our teammates. Contact us via the link in the description box below, and we'll be happy to partner you in your property investment journey.